coffee break will be Mr. Jouni Marjamäki from Finland. So we have the view from Lithuania, also from Germany, and now we have something new from another side of the Baltic Sea. Floor is yours. Well,
I don't know where it is.
no.
Do I find it here somewhere?
On the screen, you can see
Oh, is it
the
on the
second
screen?
one.
Yeah, you have better eyes. How do I get the whole view? I don't remember. You know? Okay, full screen.
Yes.
Thank you so much. Okay, dear friends and colleagues, my name is Jouni Marjamäki and I'm a keeper of Louhisaari Manor, that you can see here in the picture. So I act as like a director of this manor. I also take care of a couple of more sites. Hammock Castle, the only red brick castle in Finland from the 13th century, 14th century. Next to the Hammock Castle there's a prison museum from 1872. And then my fourth site is Olavinlinna Castle, St. Olof's Castle in eastern Finland, about 4 hours from Helsinki, and that's from 1475. So I have these 4 sites and 1 manor, which is nice. Today my presentation is going to examine the role of the museum in the preservation and maintenance of the natural and historical heritage around the Louhisaari Manor, dating from 1655. I'm first going to talk very shortly about manors generally in Finland and show some photos of Finnish manor buildings. Unfortunately, it's a very brief introduction. But then I'm going to shortly talk about the history of Louhisaari Manor and its highlights, and after that I'm going to present the manor's surroundings, park and gardens that can be divided in 3 different parts. Firstly, we have an English-style landscape park. Secondly, the apple orchard, and thirdly, the 18th century herbal garden that we also call as the Pehr Calm's museum garden. I will explain more about that later. And after that I'm going to tell about the challenges with garden, park and orchard and the benefits and the results we have been seeing when taking care of the surroundings and using them for museum work. Okay, let's start. So what is a typical Finnish manor? Well, in Finland as well as elsewhere, the manors were dwelling for noble persons or people of the upper class. And very common historical definition of a manor in Finland has been that manor is a house standing alone, not in a village, and owned at least 5 cottages, had 5 tenants, at least 50 hectares of fields and 500 hectares of forest. It has been one definition in Finland. But nowadays, most of them are used as hotels, restaurants, or museums, but many of them are still in private use or used for business operations as a farm, for example. There is no special association for manor owners in Finland, as the ownership of these sites varies a lot. But in 1928 and 1930, there was a book published, Manners in Finland, and it presented 92 manors. And then later, 1939, 1945, a book, Manners and Large Estates of Finland, was published. It presented 1,293 estates. But I think the real amount of manors is probably hundreds, but not 1,000 in Finland, if you try to calculate or come up with what is the real real amount of manors nowadays. And the manors are mostly situated in southern Finland, especially Uusimaa region, which is around Helsinki. There are some regions in Finland there are none manors. There has been no manor culture at all. And you can divide Finnish manners in different groups. And the first group, you could say that medieval and 16th century manners. And here is a Kankainen manor, stone manor. There's also interior photo, shows how the owners have altered the interiors during the years, of course, where they have lived there. And this just few years ago changed the owner from a foundation to a private owner. So you are not able to visit them anymore, but I was lucky to be able to visit the place before it was transferred to a private owner. And second group is the 17th century manors. Here, Suursalmi, Lahti Manor from 1672. And it is privately owned by a Society of Swedish Literature in Finland, but it's still used as a private home by the ancestors of this Kreutz family, Swedish family. And I was very lucky to visit this place. Marius was also in Finland visiting for the seminar, and we got a permission to visit their home. And it was a quite amazing experience to see living history. And Gunta was there with us too. And yesterday or the day before, we were talking about the seteri roof. So here you can see the one type of a seteri roof. This is said to be a Dutch-inspired roof.
Okay.
And third group, you could say that the 18th century manners, stylistically strongly connected to Sweden. Here is one early example, Kuusista Manor from 1738, Swedish Baroque style, design taken probably from an architectural model book, like the Swedish Carl Winblad's book. And this is one of the oldest still existing wooden buildings in Finland. And this is the place where you can go and visit. It's nowadays, it functions as an art gallery in summertime. Another example of the 18th century manners, Mustio Manor from 1783, 1792, Rococo, Neoclassicism, and it functions as a museum of a hotel business. Quite amazing place to visit. And fourth group, you could say that there's the autonomous Finland in Russian Empire from 1809 until 1917. And here representing this group is Urajärvi Manor. Actually it's from 1806, so a couple of years before this group, but stylistically represents this group, empire style, and it functions as a museum nowadays. And there you can also see that the interior has been altered during the years. And it's more typical to find this kind of more modest and smaller mansions in Finland. Here representing another example of this group, a much more imposing one, is the Malmgård Manor from 1882, 1885, and it's a Dutch neo-Renaissance. It's partly in private use, partly it functions as a sightseeing place. And this manor functions as a large estate producing agricultural products. And you can see also buy tickets to see the main building, guided by the Count Kreutz himself. And this manor has been the Kreutz family since 1622. So that was a short introduction to Finnish manners, and as you can see, the influences came from the West, as from Sweden, but some also from Baltic Germans. Okay, let's go to the topic of today, Louhisaari Manor. Where is Louhisaari situated? Here is a map with Louhisaari marked with a red dot, and the village is called Askainen, and it's situated 30 kilometers northwest from Turku. And the reason why Louhisaari was established there by the sea is that Stockholm was the main connection point of the Swedish kingdom during the 16th and 17th century, and Louhisaari in Askainen was clearly connected spiritually to Stockholm. And of course, for centuries, most important way of traveling to Louhisaari was by the sea. This is one thing that people normally forget, that when they drive by car to Louhisaari, that there were no roads at that time, of course. And the manor used to be right by the sea still in the 17th century, but because of the post-glacial rebound, the shoreline is much further away nowadays. And here you can see the main building with two annex buildings. In Finnish we say Louhisaaren kartanolinna, and kartano is manor and linna is castle. So we call it a manor castle because it's so imposing one that we can't say that it's a very normal manor in Finland. And in Finnish word saari means island, but it's not an island anymore. It used to be more like a peninsula around 15th and 16th century. But there are two noble families that are connected to the long history of Louhisaari, the Flemings, who owned the Louhisaari from 1450 until 1791, and the Mannerheim family who owned the Louhisaari from 1795 until 1903. And some of you that know the history of Finland know the family name Mannerheim or Mannerheim from the Finnish military commander and president of Finland, Carl Gustaf Mannerheim. And he was born in Louhisaari in 1865. And for many Finns, Louhisaari is a very important place because of that. They even want to come and see the place, the room where Marshal Mannerheim was born. And nothing is certain about the Louhisaari buildings before the completion of the present main building in 1965, but we know that the southeastern, the left, the building here on the front, the smaller building, is older than the other annex. Its cellars may date back to the 16th century. So it means that the previous main building might have been on the site of the southwestern annex. And the Louhisaari group of buildings is one of the very few examples in Finland of the palatial architecture that partly gets its ideas from the German-Dutch late Renaissance. The buildings have been preserved in the main in their original form, but of course they have been repaired and altered in the past 300 years. And the major repairs were carried out in the 18th century, but then the restoration project, 1962-1967, did so that the exterior of the manor house was restored as far as possible to what it had been in the 17th century. And it was opened as a museum already in 1967, so almost 60 years it has been as a museum. And the main building of Louhisaari was built by the Swedish Governor General of Finland, Herman Claesson Fleming, in 1655. And on the right you can see also landscape painting from 1660s. And it's situated on a festive hall ceiling, and it represents Louhisaari Manor in 1660s. And this is probably the earliest landscape painting in Finland. And as you can see, the original house probably had a small turret or small tower in the middle of the roof, and the chimneys also were hidden at that time. The main interior features of the first and third stories of the main building were restored to the 16th century. The 17th century form. Here's a castle hall. The second story, which always had been the residential floor, is overall, it represents the 18th and 19th century. Here, the chamber on the third floor. And here's the great bedchamber of the manor on the third floor. And the museum objects on display are from the collections of the National Museum. And we have very few original objects left, as Louhisaari has had many owners during its history. And on the third floor, there's a festive hall in 17th century style. And this festive hall ceiling has a unique painting work from the 17th century. It's one of the finest 17th century painting works in Sweden and Finland. And it's artistically high quality, and it has never been painted over or repainted. So it's a very precious object in Finland. And the artist was a German-born artist, Joachim Lang, who lived and worked in Sweden. And he was probably working with the ceiling of Louhisaari around year 1660. But let's talk about the typical visitors and our target audiences. Louhisaari Manor, with its rich interiors and objects, invites those that are interested in history of architecture and the way of living of high nobility. And the Herbal Garden, Apple Orchard and the English Park attract garden enthusiasts. Many visitors return to Louhisaari unique atmosphere every year. We have intentionally tried to build this kind of atmosphere of Jane Austen novels, a bubble where visitors get an immersive and nostalgic feeling of a place. And our guides have early 19th century costumes, as you can see in those two other photos. And we have only few foreign tourists, only about 3% of the visitors are foreign, because we are so far away out in the countryside with no public transportation. But in the summer, there are visitors coming by cars, camping cars, motorbikes, bicycles. As Louhisaari is located on one of the main roads that leads to the archipelago. And we get about 20,000 visitors per year. We do have to remember that Louhisaari is quite a delicate place, so it could never be a place for mass tourism. The infrastructure is not meant for huge number of visitors. And we are only open during the summer months, between the 15th of May and 31st of August. September we open for groups, and then in October we have very popular haunted mansion tours. We sell about 2,500 tickets every year, and it's always sold out. And here's an aerial photo. The land area around the manor is about 7.5 hectares. It's all that wooded area you can see between the fields. There you can see where the 18th century herbal garden is situated, where the apple orchard is, and then there are large areas around the manor as the English-style landscape park. And there on the right you can see the entrance to the art area from the parking lot. So the visitors walk directly towards the manor through so-called outer court park, and then they enter the main court and then the house. So what do we know about the history of the gardens in Louhisaari? Well, we do know that at least largest manors always had a kitchen garden, and that has also been the case in Louhisaari. In the garden, which was divided into square lots, like you can see in this old map, a varied crop of herbs, vegetables and other useful plants and fruit-bearing trees were grown. At Louhisaari, even the cultivation of pear trees and exotic mulberries was attempted with rather poor results. But the map you see here is the earliest map where Louhisaari kitchen garden is shown. It dates from 1797. The present buildings are marked with red, and the nowadays location of Herbal Garden and apple orchard are shown with yellow squares. And one can say that they are approximately there where Louhisaari had these activities in 18th century. And from here we have a beautiful garden plan made by Palunat and Stenius from 1874. And front of the house you can see the beautiful flower beds, but we don't have any knowledge if that kind of flower beds have ever been in Louhisaari. I think we would need some to do some with new technique to find out if there's something still underground. And I found especially intriguing you can see the colorful trees. There are red trees, orange trees, even blue ones. So I hope we get that kind of trees back someday. Yeah. And here is a modern guide illustration of the whole park area. And what are the benefits when we take care of the gardens? It's a very important and desirable layer to the museum. It's open all year round. It benefits for local people. And of course the ecological side and sustainability. And we plant new trees. And of course aesthetic side is very important too. As you can see here, we art historians, we try to create pleasing environment for the visitors. And what are the challenges? Of course, the dangerous old trees everywhere. And which is a strange, sometimes you meet visitors that they expect the trees and the park to stand still. Nothing can be changed. Here's a photo of an inventory of the apple orchard. It was established in 2016-2017. We had 17 old apple trees on site, mostly planted in 1960s when the museum was opened. Some of the trees are even older. Unfortunately, you can't see the name of the varieties. The text is quite small, but if somebody is interested what we have there, you can send me a message. And they are divided in 3 groups from Mannerheim family era. Then there are apples connected historically to the National Museum of Finland, and then we have historical apple trees. So altogether about 76 trees when everything has been planted. But as you can see, as you can know with nature, sometimes you can't control it. Everything happens during the years, and there have been damages, winter has been harsh, and even some of the chosen trees that we have decided many years ago to get, they have been very difficult to obtain. And so this herbal garden was established in 2016, Pehr Calm's museum garden. And this Finnish botanist Pehr Calm was one of the most popular lecturers of his time, and he was a student of Swedish botanist Carl Linné. And in 1769 he gave a series of lectures about the care of the garden, and there are handwritten lecture notes from the students of Turku Academy. They have been preserved, and we have used those lectures to create this garden. These were implemented literally and point by point when we established this herbal garden in Louhisaari. And the herbal garden is designed by museum gardener Aija Peura, who works for the Turku Museum nowadays. And Then we had a collaboration with the Natural Resources Institute of Finland when obtaining the plant material for the garden. Benefits, we have got new visitors. So nowadays about 20,000 per year. Ticket sales are up to 120%. Even the museum shop sales are up to 160%. And the garden concept works also in the museum shop. And we have new events around the garden. And the garden is a living organism. People come to see it many times during the season. But there are also big challenges, as you can understand. The gardeners work only during the summer season, and they know the methods of the 18th century. And there are 70 to 80 different varieties, so they demand different growing conditions, so some plants suffer. And when people hear the word garden, they have big expectations. That is the problem, especially at the beginning of the season, where there's nothing to be seen. And these theories behind the 18th century garden, they don't easily open for visitors. And here are some challenges we have. You can read them by yourself. I'm running out of time here. And funny thing was, for example, poisonous plants. Those had to be moved after first year's experience. People come to a kitchen garden, they think that they can touch everything, they can taste everything, and that is not the case. This kind of garden where they used to grow, for example, plants for rats, as a rat poison, for example. And the concept of the museum shop is the garden life and manor life, and we have items with our own brand, and the clientele is mainly people that are better off. So, which is the strength is that Louhisaari Museum Shop has the best income per visitor of all of our 10 museum shops of the National Museum of Finland. And that's because of the clientele is better off. But they know where they are going. We are far in the countryside. So that is the reason. Okay, thank you. There are my questions.
Thank you so much. But somehow it's interesting to think about having poisonous plants and see if people actually can manage or if you have to put them to the...
The funny thing is that most of us have these plants in our gardens, but we don't think about it. But when they're in a public place that is a difficult thing, because you expect it to be safe.
Of course. So are there any questions? Yes?
I don't think. What is the entry fee for the garden or for the museum?
For the garden we don't have entry fee.
Okay, you sell tickets.
Yeah, 14 euros is the entry for the house. But 14. But you can stroll around in the garden without paying.
Okay, thank you. 14.
Yes?
I don't need to. I would like to ask about the Fleming family, because in Poland was very famous aristocratic family called Fleming. If they any connection to this Fleming, do you know maybe about it?
I'm not
something.
An expert on Fleming family, if somebody else knows.
No.
There's one family, Fleming. Germany, Poland, Finland, most of the families is spread over Europe.
I see.
Europe is not the idea of today.
Okay, thank you.
Why do you use raised up gardens, the garden box, in the main room? Maybe it was original somehow, I don't know.
That's the idea of this botanist, and probably because of the warmth of it's better for the plants.
But it was not original like back in 100 years or something, maybe
You mean in Louhisaari? We really don't know. So we are just following these instructions by this botanist, but it should be done this way.
Oh yeah. And you're making cider there?
No.
So it was good selling,
I'm sorry. We have been thinking about it. Alcohol laws in Finland are quite strict. Yeah, we are not allowed to sell alcohol. Of course, we produce cider with some company, but we are not allowed to sell it.